Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your natal Uranus in the 5th house of love and creativity. I have this position and it's been hard to really get a handle on what that means. I have been reading about this position for many years, and when I had all these astrology books before I had internet sites to go on. But speaking of that, I want to give a shout out to advancedastrology.com, where I am obtaining my information and putting it in my own words and riffing off of it. Because Uranus is an outer planet, uh, in my particular case, I have Pluto in the 5th house as well. And this is because of the time period that when I was born. And both of those planets I can't get a good handle on, or I haven't been able to thus far, in terms of how they affect me personally. When a planet is not a personal planet, we can look to the house placement to get a more personal influence for the person, for the individual. So Uranus is all about things which are out of the box, different. There's this eccentric quality, this nonconformist quality that's associated with Uranus. It's considered shocking, weird. And the 5th house is about creativity. And if you don't, if you think that you don't have a creative bone in your body, then it's, what you find enjoyable when it comes to art or other forms of pleasure. The 5th house are pastimes, hobbies, and things like that. Now, not that I want to just go on about myself, but one thing that just jumped out at me is that Uranus is associated with astrology. So 5th house, hobbies, that was certainly my hobby for many, many years before I did it professionally. So there you go. And maybe that's true for you if you have Uranus in the 5th house. But this is also the house of love and how you regard it. Basically, this will make you interested in people who are off the beaten path. And typically what we would say are people who are hippies, who are like kind of freewheeling. This is the typical Uranian influence. But because it has that contrarian quality to it, I would say that it could be the person who is conservative when everybody else is really unconventional. I mean, it is associated with being unconventional, but what is convention? You have to see what the overlying influences around you, and then you want to be different than that. You don't want to conform. The nonconformist doesn't want to conform to that. So, let's see. This is not the house of relationship. This is the house of love and love affairs. So it's your attitude towards love, and you need freedom in love, whoever it is that you get involved with. Now, I think you could actually meet an Aquarian. Maybe that's an important relationship for you. But you need somebody who you're not going to have this predictable relationship with. There has to be, Uranus is associated with electricity, and that's, I think, where that sense of, you know, excitement can stem from. And also, there's a connection between Uranus And, well, I was going to say, you don't want something that bores you, something that's mundane. You want something that is really unique. I know that saying really unique is redundant or whatever. You want something unpredictable. If you can predict your relationship, if it gets to that level, you're not going to be into it. So that can be different types of signs. It doesn't have to be one particular sign. But this idea of independence in relationships is very important to you. Now, like I said, this is not the house of relationships. That's the seventh house. But this is where you fall in love, and you have to fall in love with the person who is right for you, somebody who can surprise you, who doesn't, like I said, who is not predictable. Now, they mention recklessness with this house placement. I don't know about that. Um, I think that there might be a tendency to crave excitement, and that could be a form of pleasure for the person. Maybe it's the type of hobby that you have. If you have Mars in Aquarius is associated with being a daredevil. If you have like Mars in conjunction with Uranus, you might enjoy, going really fast or whatever, things that are fun, going to amusement parks, going on roller coaster rides, or just other types of activities where there's that sense of danger. But I really think it's like the speed that is a big part of that, because I think the reason people crave going really fast is because it feels like they're flying. So maybe this is like bungee jumping or something, or parasailing, the feeling of freedom. The fifth house is the house of children, and I don't have any kids, and I think one of the big reasons why is always said I wanted my freedom. So I think yeah, and they say that here too, that you might not want your own kids or you want to adopt. I don't see. They're talking about. They said that adoption would especially be the case if you have the moon in Aquarius or the moon in the 11th house. I don't really know why they're saying that. Maybe because that would be like a detached emotional state where you don't, but that, even if you adopt children, you can still be very attached to them emotionally. So I don't really get that. Unless it's like a humanitarian impulse. That I would understand. But they say if you do have kids, because this does not mean that you will not have children. If you do have kids, they could be very unusual. They could be very intelligent, like they, gifted compared to their peers, or they just are different in other ways. And they mentioned that their talent could be in the area of engineering, science. These are kind of these linear types of things, mathematics, astrology. But they also mentioned humanitarian concerns. And okay, now here's one that is very important to note, is that Uranus in the fifth can give a unexpected pregnancy because of that erratic nature. So that means that if you think that if you're a woman and you think, I know my cycle, I know when I'm fertile, you better be prepared, because that could be something that happens. Now, it's interesting. They say here that if you have several planets in the fifth house, that could indicate that you work with children. I don't work with children, but I did get trained in college for early childhood. So that was definitely an interest of mine, of working with children, if I was going to have to work for somebody else. Let's see, what else? Well, I'm really surprised. The fifth house can be speculation or gambling. So, I mean, you could say like an unexpected thing. I don't know. I don't know if gambling would be indicated here. I wouldn't recommend anybody gamble. But the truth is that in the fifth house, you might have great gains, but also great losses. And this is one of those things that can be very dangerous for somebody, because they might feel like encouraged to gamble if they have a gain and then they have a loss. I think that's probably why they don't mention this. They don't want to encourage anybody to gamble, because it can be addictive, of course. Now, in terms of creativity, they mention that Jimi Hendrix had this position. They said that there's a great urge to create. Now, I don't know why Uranus would make that. Like I said, I have Pluto here. I would say much more likely that Pluto creates a powerful desire for creativity. They do mention following a different path for creative pursuits. So being, one's own person. And they mention rebellion. Because this is one thing that they mentioned, which I find very interesting, about the fifth house, is that it's associated with self-expression. So I was thinking of creative self-expression, and I'm sure that's the top example of it, but just how you show up in the world. And so now I'm starting to get a handle on having this placement, and I hope that you have as well. You're very non-traditional. You don't like to have to follow what has come before, and you're also somebody who sees into the future. And this is a very intuitive person. So anyway, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a personal reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.